Hey there! Today we are cooking with chocolate chips, cinnamon sugar, jam, almond marzipan, and croissant dough. On this episode of What Do You Make of This, I'm going to show you how to make dessert croissants. Dessert croissants have got to be one of my favorite cafe treats. And they're good not just for dessert, like their name would suggest, but they're also wonderful in the afternoon with some coffee or tea, or even just for a special occasion breakfast. And they are deceptively easy to make. They seem like one of those things that should be very difficult to assemble and bake, but really, because you're using pre-made croissant dough, they're very, very simple to put together, and I'm going to show you how. So the first one we're going to make is one of my personal favorites, and it is a chocolate croissant. So to do this, I'm going to begin with store-bought croissant dough. And I want to call out, there is no shame in using store-bought dough for this. Croissant dough is something that is very time-consuming and very temperamental to make on your own. So even most restaurants start with pre-made dough that they get from a professional who makes it elsewhere. So do not feel ashamed of having to use pre-made croissant dough. It's totally okay. If you can't find croissant dough, you can use puff pastry dough. Works really well for this. Just cut it into triangles, and we're going to do the same method. Or if you can't find either of those, I've even done this before with biscuit dough. Roll it flat. Instead of rolling things up though, if you're using the biscuit dough, just fold it in half. It'll make kind of a little crescent moon shape and come out more like a donut, but I have done it and it is delicious. So you have lots of options. We're going to take the same idea, but you can adapt it depending on what you can find in the grocery store that day. So enough on that, let's do some chocolate croissants. Very simple to do. I'm just going to start with some chocolate chips into a triangle of croissant dough. So you don't even need very many. I'm just going to do a little row of chocolate right in the middle. And actually, I'm going to be doing 2 of each flavor. So let's just make things easy and let me get a second triangle. Just like that. It's kind of sticky, and one of the secrets for croissant dough is to try to keep it really nice and cold because they're made with a lot of butter, and if the butter starts to melt, they don't get as puffy. So try to work quickly, or if you need a break, put the dough in the refrigerator. So we'll take a few more little chocolate chips, and I'm using chunks today, but you can use chips. You can even break up pieces of candy bar. It's really a very informal process. It's all chocolate, it's all melty, it's all delicious. Okay, so now that I've got them arranged as nicely as possible along the end, I'm just going to start rolling from the flat end toward the pointy end. And you just roll them up a little bit, and as you see, you might be able to see here where some of the chocolate is poking out, just tuck them in and roll the ends over, kind of like you're sealing an envelope. That'll just make sure that as the chocolate melts, it doesn't ooze out the sides. Not that that's a bad thing. Once you've got it rolled up, you're just going to try to arrange it as nicely as possible, pinch those ends closed, and then you want to make sure that the pointy side is down so that they don't unravel while they start baking. This is just going to go onto a foil-lined baking sheet, just like that. And we'll do the same thing with this guy. I'll just move it right to the middle here, give it a very careful roll. If you tend to have warm hands or it's a hot day, you can even put your hands under some cold water in the tap. That will actually get your hands a little bit colder and help to keep this croissant dough from melting while you're working. So another tip, you can even make these in the dead of summer. Totally okay. All right, that's rolled up. Give it a little pinch, and they're not perfect, and that's kind of the beauty of these, is each one is just unique and special and a little different, but all so delicious. That is chocolate croissants. So the next thing we're going to do is a jam-filled croissant. Okay, so for that, let's once again start with one triangle. You know what, the jam might be kind of messy, so I'm going to do these one at a time. Okay, so one triangle. I'm using blueberry jam because it's what I have. I like to make a big batch every summer. You use whatever jam you like. There is no wrong answer for this. I'm just going to give it a good mix. This one might get a little bit messier than the chocolate chips were, but we're going to just do the exact same process. So the filling is going to go down on one end. I can already tell this is going to be messy. We're going to give it a roll. Yep, there goes the jam. That's okay. Like I said, these might get messy, but they are beautiful and delicious just the same. Okay, give that a roll. There's like a little trail of jam out either end here. So same thing, we're just gonna roll it up. We're gonna try to pinch the sides a little bit. Might be a little harder if you're using the jam and it's very oozy like mine is, because it's a little harder to get everything to stick together, but that's okay. Pick it up and very quickly move it to your pan. We'll do one more and see if I can keep from staining the rest of these croissants with jam fingers. Okay, There we go. And we'll just go round 2. I'm gonna try to learn from my mistake and get a little less liquid in my jam. There we go. And more fruit. You can also just use fresh fruit, by the way. It does not have to be a preserved jam. Fresh fruit, totally delicious, beautiful. Fresh berries, especially like a strawberry slices in a croissant would be so good. This one I'm actually gonna try to tuck it. I just have to play with it a little bit to try to get it rolled up. There's really no wrong answers to these. So, you know, if you've got some tiny kitchen helpers, this is actually a really good project for them because as long as they're rolled up, they're gonna come out pretty well in the end. So, great rainy day activity. Okay, there we go. Give that a little pinch. Get it over to the pan. And I've made a huge mess here, so I'm just going to get this cutting board cleaned up and we will make the next 2 after that. Okay, that's better. So the next thing I want to make are the cinnamon sugar croissants. And these are really nice because they basically come out like little cinnamon rolls. These are delicious, especially for breakfast, and so easy to put together. So these are going to be a slightly different process. So same thing, we're going to start with the wide end toward us. And I've just got some cinnamon sugar mix here. So to make cinnamon sugar, you basically just do 1 part cinnamon to 4 parts sugar. I've just got a tablespoon of cinnamon and a teaspoon of cinnamon and 4 teaspoons of sugar. You can make a giant batch of this. You can certainly adjust it. If you like more cinnamon, use more. If you like less cinnamon, use less. There's really no wrong answer here. This is just a matter of personal taste. I like a really strong cinnamon flavor, so I do the 1-to-4 ratio and it works out great for me every time. So to do this, I'm just going to sprinkle some cinnamon sugar as neatly as I can so that I don't destroy this cutting board a second time, all over the surface of this croissant. You don't need a real thick layer of it, just a very light sprinkle. Tapping the spoon, by the way, helps to distribute it more evenly than when you try to shake. That's when this spice or cinnamon sugar, whatever you're using, goes everywhere. So when you're trying to cook, great tip, if you're measuring from a spoon, tap, tap, tap will get you a much more even distribution. Okay, so I'll just set that off to the side right there. And then once again, we're just going to start rolling. So same thing, roll it all up. And because these don't have as much sticky filling that's going to come out the sides as we did with the chocolate and the jam, you can actually arrange these a little more nicely. These come out a little bit prettier. The other ones, I won't be on, I won't lie to you. They're a little bit of a delicious mess, but they're still perfect just how they are. Don't worry about perfection. These you have a chance to really play around and try to make them look as fancy and crescent shaped as possible. And then I like to take you know what, I'm not even going to use the spoon. I'll use my fingers for this. A little extra sprinkle of cinnamon sugar right across the top. We'll just make them look pretty as they're baking. Okay, and that one onto the pan, and we will do one more just like that. So same process all over again. A little sprinkle, cinnamon sugar, just along the length of the croissant. And then I'll get that out of the way so I don't knock it while we're rolling. We'll do one more little spread. That works much better. So learning as we go here, it's been a while since I've made these. Just give it a little tap to spread it out. A lot easier than trying to do it with a spoon. Okay, and then once again, I'm just going to start rolling from the flat end toward the pointy end, just like that. Give it a little bend. We'll give it one more little sprinkle right across the top, and you can do this any way you want. You could even just flip these upside down and dunk them right in the cinnamon sugar if you like. I'm just trying to get fancy. And we'll get that right onto the pan. Okay, so I'm just going to rake some of the sugar out of the way. So the nice thing about this cutting board is it's got a little bit of a moat around the end, so I can kick it off here and then we don't have to wash the cutting board all over again. Okay, last but not least are going to be the almond croissants. So I'm just going to get the last of this dough carefully onto the board. And honestly, I'm not even that worried that there's little traces of cinnamon on here because cinnamon and almonds are delicious together. So really any of these things pair nicely. So you don't have to worry about cross-contamination. It's dessert, everything is sweet, everything is delicious, everything will work very well together. So if you get blueberry jam in your chocolate croissants, oh no, it'll be delicious. Okay, get that out of the way. So for the almond croissants, I've just tucked off to the side here some almond marzipan as well as just a glaze that I made using powdered sugar and enough water to turn it into kind of a liquid. Totally optional, I'm just going to show you how you could use this to decorate the top of the croissant when you're done, but if you don't want to do this step, by all means, skip it. Okay, so I've got almond marzipan here. If you've never worked with almond marzipan, it's a bit like the world's most delicious Play-Doh, and it is a mixture of almonds, like almond flour, and sugar. and you mix it together, and that's what kind of creates this almond marzipan along with some water. So it's very sticky. Some recipes use eggs. Sometimes I can find it in the grocery store, sometimes I can't. I actually couldn't, so I made my own. I'm not going to lie to you, it was my first time making almond marzipan. It was pretty easy, but because it was my first time, I was scared to do it on camera. So we will do an almond marzipan feature for a future episode. But for now, like I said, you can usually buy it in the grocery stores. So I've just got a little log of almond marzipan, and I'll actually show you here before we start rolling it. Like it's very soft and squishy. It really is like a dough. So we're just going to arrange the little dough right along the flat end, just like we did with the chocolate. And once again, start rolling. Okay, so that's number one. And again here, you do want to kind of tuck in that marzipan and try to cover it because it will melt a little bit as it's baking, and I just don't want it to ooze out and start to burn. It's very delicious, it's very delicate. So try to cover it up just a little bit. It won't be the end of the world if it comes out, but just to make sure I don't have a river of it getting everywhere else, we'll do that. And then I'm going to flip it so that it seams side down. Actually, you know what? I'll set it aside. Let's do this other one, and then I'll show you how to decorate two at once. There we go. Okay, so a little more of this. And again, because mine is homemade, it's a little more sticky than what you would buy in the grocery store. But I think the moral here is that it really is easy enough that you can do it yourself. Don't be afraid. So it might not come out exactly as fancy as it does when you buy it from a professional, but even a total amateur like me was able to do it, no problem. Okay, so that's the marzipan. I'm just going to roll it into this croissant, like so. See in here, you might be able to see there's a little bit of cinnamon sugar. It's gonna be delicious, I'm not worried about that. Tuck over those ends, just like that, maybe a little pinch. Okay, so now that I've got two of them, nice little packages of deliciousness, I'm going to just take this little bit of sugar water. So again, this is just powdered sugar and water. You can use regular sugar and water. You can skip this entirely. And I'm just going to brush it right over the top to make them sticky. That's all you need. A very little bit goes a very long way. By the way, if you're doing this, the powdered sugar only needs the tiniest couple little drops of water if you're using about a tablespoon of sugar. It's astonishing how little water it takes to make this into a liquid. You can kind of just play around with it though until you get the right ratio. So if it's too liquidy, put a little more powdered sugar. If it's not thin enough, add a little more water. You'll figure it out eventually. Okay, so I'm just going to get that out of the way. And then because these are nice and sticky on top, now I can just take another little sprinkle of slivered almonds and stick them right on top. And these are going to self-decorate while they bake. The almonds will get kind of golden brown. And then anybody reaching for these is going to know right away that it's an almond croissant. And by the way, there are other types of marzipan out there. So I have seen peanut marzipan, and if you're making it yourself, you can really experiment with lots of different nuts. I bet something like hazelnuts or walnuts would be delicious. Once you know the method, it's really easy to play around with things. So that's kind of the cool thing about making things yourself, is you're not limited to a recipe. Once you're comfortable with it, play around, make it your own. Okay, so we'll just get the rest of those almonds right there. And then, as before, I'm just going to get these into the pan, and I think I have, yes, just enough room. We'll get that out of the way. I'll put it in there. Okay, we have just enough room for all of these croissants. So here we go. We have 4 different types of croissants. I made 8 croissants total. These are going to go into an oven at 350 degrees for somewhere between 10 and 12 minutes. You're just looking for them to puff up and get golden brown on top. Once they're cooked, take them out of the oven, and we're just going to let them sit until they are cool enough to decorate. Okay, so the croissants are done baking. 10 minutes was all they needed. As soon as they were done, I took them off the pan and put them onto a plate so that they could cool more evenly. I let them rest for about 10 to 15 minutes. You just want to make sure that when you touch them, there's no kind of warmth that comes off, because the next thing we're going to do is decorate. So to decorate these, it's actually pretty simple. All you need is a mesh strainer and some powdered sugar. And I'm just going to take a scoop of the sugar and pop it right into the strainer. You don't even need that much of it, but I would rather have more than less for this part. Get that spoon out of the way. And then all you're going to do is hold it kind of high up on the plate. The higher you go, the more evenly this is going to sprinkle. And we're just going to start tapping the sides. So here we go. just like that, to get a nice little even, almost like beautiful sugary snow all over the top of all of these croissants. Just like that. We'll get the extra, we'll just put it off to the side there. And then that's all you've got to do to decorate. And these are the elegant and easy dessert croissants. As always, this recipe can be found in the description below. Please like and subscribe for more videos. I'm Jessica. Thanks for watching.